Xuanyangzi, known as a Feathery Ambition final boss in Wuchang Fallen Feathers game, didn't become a monster because he was evil. He became one because he went too far trying to prove he was actually right. The most effective way to understand Feathery Ambition motives is to see him as an inevitable result of a single idea taken to its extreme, that humanity can evolve beyond suffering if it just embraces the feathering instead of resisting it. At times, when the world of Shu is collapsing under mysterious disease, people mutate into bird-like harrows, losing their minds and humanity, Xuanyangzi, a Taoist leader and healer, realizes that this disease might not be a curse at all, but it might be a broken form of something divine. So what if you stop trying to cure humanity and start trying to perfect its mutation? That is the core motive of his path that I'm gonna dive deeper further on. Everything about Xuanyangzi starts from a place that feels almost reasonable. He wasn't a conqueror, he wasn't driven by power, he was just a healer, a Taoist master trying to guide people through a world that was already falling apart. The feathering disease wasn't just killing people in Wuchang Fallen Feathers, it was transforming them into something else entirely, something monstrous, something inhuman. And while everyone else saw it as a plague to be eradicated, Xuanyangzi saw something deeper. He noticed a pattern. The transformation wasn't random, it followed a direction. It was as if the human body was trying desperately to become something it used to be. And so the feathering might not be just decay, but the evolution itself. That was the moment Xuanyangzi stopped being just a healer and have become something more dangerous, a man chasing truth at any cost. I think that is where his tragedy really begins. Not when he starts experimenting or takes the elixir, but when he realizes that the disease might actually be working as intended. Once Xuanyangzi accepts that the feathering is tied to something divine, the entire mortal framework shifts. He no longer sees monsters, but he sees incomplete transformations. This is where his philosophy becomes clear. If the human body is trying to return to a higher, avian state, then the problem isn't the transformation. The problem is failure. Madness, mutation, decay – these aren't the goal, they are side effects of an imperfect process. So Xuanyangzi decides to fix it, and not by stopping the feathering, but by controlling it. That's when the experiments begin. First on his disciples, then inevitably on himself. He consumes the vermilion elixir, a substance derived from the ancient bird, the very source of the disease, and in doing so he makes a choice that defines everything that follows. He chooses ascension over survival. This decision is driven by belief. He genuinely thinks he can succeed where everyone else failed, that he can become the true immortal, a being that harmonizes with the feathering without losing its mind. And actually he almost succeeded. By the time Wuchang faces him, Xuanyangzi is gone, at least physically. What stands before is something else entirely. Feathery Ambition, a massive, multi-winged creature, part human, part ancient bird, part decaying myth, a failed god. Xuanyangzi wasn't trying to become powerful, he was trying to recreate the ancient bird, the primordial source of mortality, the divine being that once granted humanity its gift. But he didn't have the purity, he didn't have the original divine artifact, and so he didn't have the right to that power. What he creates instead is something unnatural and unstable. His body flows with unnatural fluidity, channeling water and ice, a twisted reflection of his Taoist still water philosophy now turned violent. His wings symbolize transcendence, but they're excessive, malformed, almost desperate. And buried within the creature, still visible if you look closely, is his original Taoist hairpiece. A small, almost insignificant detail, but it means he's still in there, trapped, aware. A man who reaches for godhood and ended up imprisoned inside his own failure. To really understand Xuanyangzi, you have to understand what he was chasing. The ancient bird wasn't just a creature, it was a symbol of perfect immortality, a divine entity tied to the origins of the feathering itself. Thousands of years it represented harmony, order, eternal life without corruption. But that world is gone. The rituals that sustained it were broken, the power was corrupted. And what remains is red mercury, a twisted echo of divinity. Xuanyangzi sees this and believes he can restore it, but that is where he misunderstands everything. He treats the divine like something that can be reconstructed, engineered, forced into existence through alchemy and willpower. But the ancient bird isn't just power, it's a purity, and that is something he no longer has. So instead of becoming the sun bird, a being of light and order, he becomes its opposite, a parasite of the myth, a feathery ambition. I think that is why his form feels so wrong. Not just grotesque, but fundamentally incorrect, like reality itself is rejecting what he's become. I also believe that Wuchang's story doesn't fully reject Xuanyangzi's ideas. It wasn't possible, it just required the right vessel. What if Xuanyangzi wasn't wrong? What if humanity really can transcend the feathering? There is a chance that his failure wasn't due to madness alone, it was due to limitation. Xuanyangzi reached for something real, something achievable, but he just wasn't capable of becoming it. And in trying anyway, he destroyed himself and countless of others. Xuanyangzi's story isn't just about a man who became a feathery ambition monster. I think it's more about what happens when ambition loses its limits, when belief overrides morality, and when the desire to save humanity becomes more important than humanity itself. Thanks for watching, hit that like button and subscribe for more Wuchang Fallen Feathers, lore and guide videos, and stay sharp out there!